Hi, and welcome to the Mayor's Report. I'm Mayor David J. Narkewicz of the City of Northampton, and this is my monthly television program on Northampton Community Television, where we discuss some of the issues and projects that we're working on in the City of Northampton. As you've probably heard, there's been a lot of talk in the state around transportation. It's been a major issue that the governor has been talking about, the legislature, as well as it's an issue we talk about here in Northampton at the local level. So I thought it would be an important discussion to talk about here on the Mayor's Report. So today we have as a special guest Massachusetts Department of Transportation Aeronautics Administrator Chris Willengorg, who's going to talk to us about the governor's Way Forward proposal on transportation, as well as other transportation issues affecting the state, as well as the city of Northampton. So Chris, welcome to Northampton and welcome to the Mayor's Report.
Great, thank you, Mayor Narkewicz. I'm glad to be on your show today and look forward to sharing with you the great work that we're doing at Mass DOT and share with you the governor's plan.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we start right there? I know that I know one part of what the governor and what Secretary Davey were working on is first going out around the Commonwealth and really trying to listen to people about transportation needs. I know we had hearings in Amherst and in Springfield. I tried to let our constituents know about the one that happened over at UMass. Can you tell me a little bit about those public hearings that were held around the state?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was very important that the governor and Secretary Davey wanted to be sure that we heard from our customers what they wanted to see their future transportation system to look like. So we went across the state, 17 or 18 different locations, and we were in Amherst and Springfield. I actually attended the public meeting out at Amherst. And what we heard, and there were some common themes that we heard around the state, but particularly in Amherst, we heard about the regional equity in regards to transportation needs. RTA services, improved service, extended hours. Also funding, Chapter 90. We heard from many municipal leaders on the importance of Chapter 90 funding. And also improvement on our bike and pedestrian efforts, rail trails and things like that. So the message was pretty clear that we need to invest into our transportation system, and we heard that statewide.
And those are definitely issues of importance to Northampton. We've made a major focus on our transportation system, particularly providing alternative transportation systems. We have a nationally recognized bike trail network, and we've won awards for our focus on pedestrian improvements and trying to just make the city more livable, more walkable, more bikeable. And Chapter 90 is a big one for us because, like the state, like many other cities and towns, we have a pretty deep backlog of maintenance needs on our streets, our sidewalks, and at the level Chapter 90 has been funded, we really haven't been able to address as many of those needs as we'd like to. So, so the way forward was the governor's what he called his 21st century transportation plan. And I know that I've been with Transportation Secretary Davey at a number of events, and I know that he has said that you know, the way the system's currently structured is really not sustainable, and it's not really going to allow us to move forward to really have the kind of first-class transportation system we want. So tell me a little bit about that plan that the governor has proposed.
Sure. So in this plan, it's a 10-year plan where we invest $1.3 billion. So it's a $13 billion program over 10 years, but invest $1.3 billion into our transportation infrastructure across the Commonwealth. And you know, it's critical, as you know, transportation plays an important role in every resident's life across the Commonwealth. And we want to be sure that every mode, which is a conduit for economic development, receives the funding necessary to you know, preserve what we have as well as enhance the system. So in the governor's plan, about 80% of that $13 billion is for state of good repair. So those are for existing transportation infrastructure, and we're reinvesting, doing the preventative maintenance, investing into that critical infrastructure. The remaining 20% are new initiatives that the governor is looking at. So for example, the South Coast Rail or the Green Line extension, or rail service from the Berkshires down to New York City. So that pretty much gives a real overview of what the plan calls for.
Now, we mentioned Chapter 90 earlier, and for folks at home, Chapter 90 is basically the we pay our gasoline tax, and there's a formula that then redistributes a portion of that funding back to cities and towns that we use to do our road projects and things like that. So I know people will want to know, it's great that there's this big plan, but how's it going to affect Northampton? What would it mean in terms of new funding for the city of Northampton?
Sure. In particular, I mean, the Chapter 90 funds, as you mentioned, for municipal government, the Chapter 90 program is critical for improvements on local roads. And in the governor's plan, it calls for an increase from $200 million to $300 million. So, for example, in Northampton, that would basically increase the Chapter 90 funds to approximately $510,000 for the city of Northampton, which they can then utilize on maintenance on the local roads. But overall, you know, there are many bridge and roadway programs that projects that we're trying to address across the Commonwealth and along the I-91 corridor here. There are bridge projects that we're looking to do that we need to have the necessary funding in place. Once again, that whole transportation is a conduit for economic development, and we really need to invest into that infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. I know as a mayor, one of the things whenever I talk to our citizens about spending initiatives and about initiatives like that, I know one of the things that they're concerned about is, you know, how efficient are we being with their money? Are we doing the best we can to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, that we're spending that money wisely? And I know sometimes in the area of transportation, you know, particularly out here in the western part of the state, you know, sometimes people think of the big dig, and it raises negative connotations. Now I know Secretary Davey, has been sort of on a singular mission to reform that agency, and I know I remember distinctly meeting with him as a new mayor, and he wore a pin which he actually gave me, which says, because that's the way we've always done it, and it kind of had a line through it,
yes,
sort of saying that just because we've always had 2 or 3 different agencies doing something, that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. So talk about some of the reforms that have been underway that I think can give people more trust in terms of these kinds of investments.
No, absolutely. I mean, since 2009, when transportation reform came into place, MassDOT has realized savings of $500 million, and where we've reinvested that money back into our infrastructure in state of good repair. But as you mentioned, Secretary Davey is very focused on reform. It's an ongoing process at MassDOT. We consistently have performance management measures. It's a big focus of Governor Patrick, but our agency, the operating divisions at MassDOT, so that's the Highway Division, RMV, Rail and Transit, and Aeronautics, we meet quarterly with the Secretary. We go through our performance measures. We have to answer to the Secretary and the senior leadership team if we're not meeting our benchmarks. The Secretary has also been very active in combining departments, particularly the enterprise services at MassDOT and the MBTA. So for example, in the past you had a separate law department at the MBTA and MassDOT. Those are now combined. HR, same thing, combined. Office of Civil Rights, IT. So we're really focusing in on reform within our house at DOT and moving that forward. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of examples.
Thank you for that. Another thing that I think that's important, particularly out here in the Pioneer Valley in Northampton, and you mentioned the term RTA, which is a Regional Transit Authority, and out here it's the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, or PVTA, and it's one of the larger RTAs in the Commonwealth. And being in an area that's not as densely urban as Boston, people rely on a good public transportation system to get around, and so I know that I sit on the PVTA's advisory board. I represent Northampton and the Pioneer Valley on our advisory board, and one of the big issues with RTAs has been the funding structure, the fact that they essentially have to borrow their operating budgets every year. And so the big issue has been, forward funding them. So having them, having money appropriated for fiscal year 13 operations, as opposed to, funding FY13 operations, borrowing to do it, and then having it backfilled with an appropriation. I know that requires an investment, but I know that it puts a lot of pressure on an RTA like PVTA And so talk a little bit about that. Is that part of what the governor's plan entails?
Yes, absolutely. And I think throughout this process, the governor and Secretary Davey have heard clearly from the RTA administrators that forward funding is an absolute must moving forward. And that is included in the governor's transportation plan. As you know, as we heard from our customers across the state, even in the Pioneer Valley region, whether it was Amherst or Springfield, the PVTA plays a critical role in moving people across this region. And in the governor's plan, we increased for operating assistance. Currently, they receive about $17 million a year. Under the governor's plan, that would increase between $40 and $50 million. So we definitely, the governor and Secretary Davey realize the importance of the RTA's role they play, and forward funding is critical for that. It just does not make sense to do it the way we've always done it this way.
Exactly.
And that we definitely have to change that.
All right, well, that's good to hear. The other piece of this, which sometimes, we talk about roads and bridges and buses, but the transportation system has an economic impact as well. It's the way we move people, it's the way we move goods and services, it's the way people get to and from jobs. I'm assuming that part of this plan also just talks about the economic impact and sort of multiplier effect of having a good transportation system in the state.
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned earlier, the transportation is key to economic development all across the Commonwealth. And obviously the governor's done an outstanding job reaching out across the Commonwealth to ensure jobs are being created. And in particular, in my area of expertise on aviation, 2 years ago we completed a statewide airport economic impact study. And what we found is at all the public use airports across the state, there are 39 of them, over 124,000 direct and indirect jobs with an economic output of nearly $12 billion can be attributed to aviation in our airports across the Commonwealth. Here locally, just your local airport here in Northampton, you can attribute about 25 direct and indirect jobs with an economic output of about $2 million. So transportation does play a critical role. The example on the aviation side, you can see that it is key for growing our communities and providing a quality of life that all our residents deserve.
That's one of the reasons we're excited about the, I know it's not part of this plan, but the Knowledge Corridor project, which is a project to restore rail up the Connecticut River corridor, which would bring rail back to Holyoke and Northampton and Greenfield. And I know that's underway, but one of the things I'm most interested in is just the fact that it's going to allow people to move up and down the valley, and I think will be an engine both for our tourism and our cultural assets here in the city, but also economic development. So. So rail is another big one that we're very interested in. So I know aeronautics is your specialty, and I know you were saying you were just recently out at the airport. What's your take on Northampton Airport? I know the ownership there has been making a lot of investments in that facility, and how does your agency interact with a small airport like Northampton Airport?
Sure. So one of our responsibilities of the aeronautics division is to inspect our airports annually to make sure that they're safe for the public to use, as well as conduct investments into the facilities. So we work closely with Northampton Airport. They're considered a community business airport in our statewide system plan. And they play an important role in this region. Bob Bacon, who's the owner of the airport, and Rich McIsaac, who's the airport manager, have really done an outstanding job, and we're bringing the community to the airport to get a better understanding of the activities down there, particularly on the aviation education outreach side. They're very involved in what's called the Western Mass Right Flight program, where they're going into the school systems and teaching them, getting kids involved about aviation. And if they meet certain criteria, it's all about goal setting. If they meet those goals, they actually fly an airplane with a certified flight instructor for about an hour.
Yeah, I know our local, the Northampton Education Foundation, which is a local nonprofit, I know that one of the grants they just renewed, they did it last year, it was wildly popular, was the Right Flight program.
That's great.
Which again allows a middle school child to go through a whole education process that culminates in them actually flying a plane and landing a plane over Northampton. So that's it's pretty exciting, and obviously that's an asset that we drive by a lot, but it's good to hear how important that asset is, not only for Northampton, but for the state.
And I think the airport too is an excellent example of strategic investment made by the state and then the further private development that takes place at a transportation facility. Back in 2001, the state invested a little over $1 million into reconstructing the runway. At that time, there were about 45 based aircraft, and since then, there's over 70 based aircraft. There's been private investment into the hangars there. And they have a thriving flight school. They have an aircraft maintenance facility. And it's a great recreational facility. People can come, learn, feel, have a great time with aviation. And it's a wonderful, wonderful location.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, the valley, the Connecticut River, some beautiful places to fly around in. So, excellent. So, final thoughts on the way forward and the plan. I know that, it's currently in the subject of great debate on Beacon Hill, and I know that the House has a different version of how they want to fund this, but I know the governor has said that he's put the plan out there, and he's going to continue to kind of advocate for that. So, any final thoughts about the way forward, the plan, and where we're going in transportation in the Commonwealth?
Well, certainly the governor's plan is a robust plan. I think it does solve our transportation issues moving forward. It is a long-term fix. There have been other proposals put out there. That the House came out with theirs last week at a funding level of $500 million, and I believe the Senate is going to debate their version of the bill, which is approximately $800 million. So there's a lot of discussion going on. Certainly at MassDOT, we're excited that transportation is on the forefront of discussions at the State House, because once again it is a critical part of the Commonwealth, and it's going to be interesting to see over the next several months as we go through the budget season. But we feel very strongly about our plan. A lot of time and effort went into it. We did a lot of outreach to our customers, and we're excited that hopefully we'll be able to implement our plan, or hopefully most of our plan, in the future.
Now, if people wanted to read a copy of the plan or see it, I'm assuming it's available on the MassDOT website?
Yes, it is.
What is that web address?
Sure, it's www.massdot.gov.
Okay, so the dot is spelled, it's massdot.gov.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay.
And it's also on the state's website at www.mass.gov. So.
Well, this is, it seemed like a very timely subject given all the discussion and the debate about it, and I do think it's a productive thing that the governor's put this out there as a major issue, and despite the differences on funding, I think there's at least consensus that we really do have to invest in our transportation system. And in some cases, if we don't pay now, we're going to end up paying a lot more later to try to rebuild crumbling systems. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come out today and to being on the Mayor's Report. And thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate coming out today.
Okay.
I hope to see you down at the airport.
Definitely. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mayor's Report. We'll be back next month with some other discussions that we plan to have around the city and fill you in on some other projects that we're working on. And again, if you have ideas or suggestions about this program or topics that you'd like to see covered, send me an email at mayor@northamptonma.gov. Otherwise, thank you very much and goodbye.
For the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the sound of commerce and the life of its residents resonate through its 9 commercial service and 30 general aviation airports. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division oversees 36 of these public-use airports. Each of these airports, from the largest to the smallest, contributes to its economy and the quality of life enjoyed by businesses, residents, and visitors.
We're able to open up our county through this airport for hospitality issues at so many of the cultural venues that we have, and we're also able to see businessmen come in and leave in one day, being able to conduct their business in an efficient and effective way.
Massachusetts airports are major economic catalysts that are responsible for generating billions of dollars in economic benefit and supporting thousands of jobs.
Well, the Commonwealth's general aviation airports are economic engines for a variety of reasons. In many instances, they're an economic engine for some of our gateway cities, whether it be Fitchburg or Pittsfield, New Bedford, for example. They're critical for our tourism. We have a number of airports on the Cape and the islands, for example, in western Massachusetts that are utilized seasonally for tourism activities. And then we have other airports in the Commonwealth that also support commercial aviation. And most recently, we just published a statewide airport economic impact study, which shows not only the economic impacts, but also the jobs that are created either directly or indirectly relative to all of our airports.
On-airport businesses such as airlines, flight schools, and fixed base operators are all responsible for creating thousands of jobs and extensive capital projects throughout the Commonwealth.
Well, the region will benefit from the current upgrades that we are making in basically three ways. Number one, it will allow for more of the larger jets to be able to land at the Pittsfield Airport. Number two, and every bit as important, we are improving the safety of that airport for all of the planes that are coming in. And number three, we are building an all-weather landing airport. And that means more people can rely on coming to the Pittsfield Airport in good weather and in bad.
We've been very fortunate with the changes we made to the infrastructure here in the last 10 years. The previous years we were all really confined to one area, but with good planning and strong cooperation with the FAA and MassDOT, we've been able to create a plan that has allowed us to develop another formerly unused area.
The FAA works closely with general aviation, airports, state officials, and airport consultants to identify, plan, and prioritize airport projects.
Visitors who travel to Massachusetts on commercial airlines or private aircrafts also help to create economic activity by spending locally on hotels, restaurants, retail, and entertainment.
Small communities like the city of Pittsfield and modest-sized airports like the city of Pittsfield has are critical to our economic and social development. They're critical to bringing in the kinds of revenues we need from those visitors to make us a sustainable community.
Overall, the state's public use airports generate $11.9 billion in total annual economic activity, $4.9 billion in total annual payroll, and over 124,000 jobs that can be traced to the aviation industry.
The maintenance shop, KC Aviation, has been on the field for over 25 years. He maintains all the airplanes that are based here at Mansfield Airport, as well as he has an extensive range of aircraft that come in from all over the Northeast. We also have an aeronautics shop, and it's a state-of-the-art multi-use facility where airplanes can come in and get some type of an upgrade. One of the other very important operations that occurs here at Mansfield are the med flights. Because we had such a bad winter last year, the snow was so deep, Mansfield Airport was called upon several times as the exclusive med flight zone.
Since World War II, military aviation has been an important component of total statewide aviation activity. Hanscom Air Force Base has the greatest economic impact of all Massachusetts military facilities, with thousands of military and civilian personnel working on site.
Hanscom Air Force Base, according to their figures, employs 7,000 plus on a daily basis, only 1,100 of which are military. And so the rest are made up of contractors and civilians that work for the federal government. And that, in the larger Massachusetts economy, makes them one of the 10 largest employers and an economic benefit of $1.6 billion. Our two primary businesses are our fixed-based operators, which are jet aviation and signature flight support. And along with them, we have our corporate aviation users that house their aircraft here. We have flight schools. We have 2 of those. And then we have a National Aviation Academy, which teaches aircraft mechanics to students, and they have a population of about 175 currently.
Aircraft maintenance service facilities provide a variety of airframe and power plant services, as well as aircraft customization and avionics sales and repair. The technicians at these businesses have years of knowledge and experience and provide high-quality workmanship.
In Westfield, the bulk of the jobs certainly are technical in nature. We have distinct positions for those that maintain the mechanical systems of the airplane, the avionics system, and also the interior components of the airplane. These are highly skilled positions, of course, bring high pay along with them. Additionally, there are various administrative and managerial positions.
Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation's service center at Westfield Barnes Regional Airport designs, develops, manufactures, services, and supports one of the world's most technologically advanced business jet aircraft. The facility also plays a critical role in servicing aircraft in the high-traffic New York and Boston metropolitan areas.
We service about 500 airplanes per year. Additionally, we handle about 400 road trips away from the facility.
It's a great thing for the city of Westfield to be able to say, we have an airport in our district. You can get from Westfield to anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world by using Barnes Airfield. And we bring in many businesses come into the airfield and then go out from there using our other means of transportation. The Massachusetts Turnpike and Route 20 are very close by. This is a transportation hub for Western Massachusetts. And so if our community didn't have an airfield, we wouldn't have businesses like this. And without those businesses, there go the jobs, there go the taxes, and there go the other benefits that we derive from having an airfield here.
From the Berkshires to the Cape and Islands, the airport system is a vital economic engine that helps to preserve and improve the overall quality of life in Massachusetts. Our airports provide connectivity to worldwide markets and destinations, helping to sustain the Bay State's rapidly expanding business community and its world-renowned tourist destinations.